Yep. So hey,
Or
we want
jail.
to.
Amen.
We got about 70 people on here right now. Let's go to Safety Sue and see what kind of safety stuff Sue's got for us this week.
She's got it.
I got it. So,
There you go,
anyways, guys,
girl.
happy Wednesday.
Yes.
We were talking about before everybody got on. We were talking about uh, different saws in our shop, and we all have them. You know, you've got every saw that God brought up, and that is a chainsaw, a bandsaw, a circular saw, a scroll saw, a reciprocating saw, and a bandsaw. I mean, and a table saw. We all have them, and we all use them. But tonight, let's talk about safety for table saws. Table saw safety, and I don't normally read the safety things, but there's so much here, and I want to make sure that we get it right. I am going to read part of this. It's extremely important to woodworkers because most woodworkers who use power tools use table saws as their main shop tool. And to that, the power of the saws and the danger it presents, we quickly understand that lots of personal damage is possible. In fact, injuries due to table saws far outnumber injuries by other power tools in your typical workshop. However, the table saw has been in use for many, many years, so most of the problems possible can easily be foreseen. So this is 24 safety tips for the table saw. Thank God they put it in big letters. Okay, this and a lot of this is for all your saws, guys, not just the table saw. Do not wear gloves. Don't tell me about the gloves without the fingers on the lathe because I understand that. While
Yeah, no
operating,
gloves on a saw.
there are several reasons the loss of tactile sense is probably foremost, while a possible loss of gripping power is also close to the top. And some kinds of gloves are loose enough to present an item for the rotating blade grab. Wear proper eye protection and hearing protection. Eyes need to be protected from damage by projectiles, and no, standard eyeglasses will not do the job. Hearing protection is something every woodworker should start with and continue. Hearing loss creeps up on you without warning and often without symptoms until it's too late to reverse the procedure. Keep the floor in front of you while you're at the table saw, free from cutoffs and piled up sawdust. Tripping or sliding into a running or even stopped saw blade can really create problems. Wear short sleeves. Leave the ties at the office and junk your dangling jewelry. Get rid of the other loose fitting clothes while operating a table saw. Any of those items might get caught in the blade and yank you into it before you can react. Stand comfortably with your feet far enough apart for good balance. This is always important, but more so when you're cutting stock long enough to require several steps toward the saw to keep the feet going. Then you build up momentum and want to be able to stop easily. Wear footwear with non-slip soles. Avoid awkward operations. If you feel like a gawky fool doing the cut, don't do it. This helps you avoid losing your balance and possibly falling into the blade or table. Use a that is that is cut at least 6 inches or less in width. A hand that isn't close to a blade isn't going to get cut. Generally, a 6-inch minimum distance to the blade is considered safe, though some recommend 4. I'm going to tell you, when I started using the table saw, they said that was the length between your rip fence and your saw blade. If you didn't have that, then you better use a rip fence. I mean a
p.m.
You know what I'm talking about. But if you feel, let's see, use a push stick. I make my own. And, sometimes, that stuff that you get for lining your cabinets or for routing, it's kind of bumpy rubber
Okay.
stuff.
Yep.
I've cut that and put that on the bottom of my push sticks as well. So that way you've got a good grip. Use a stop block when you cross cut short lengths. Mount a stop block on the fence. This can be as simple as clamped on board that stopped just before the saw blade so that the cutoff piece cannot bind between the blade. Position your body so that you're just off to the side. Stand in front of it, guys. I've seen where some guy, he said, "Oh, I know what I'm doing," and he cut that piece and it came coming back at him, and he's lucky that it didn't impale him. So please stand to the side and push the wood through. Now, you're pushing with your right hand. This left hand should be doing nothing. You don't want it near the saw. If you want to help guide it on the side of the wood, that's fine, but really away from the saw. In fact, in a lot of schools, they say once you started the cut, you put the hand off to the side so that if you need to hit the stop key right away, you're good to go. Never reach behind or over the blade when it's running. We would push the item through, and with this hand, we'd go and we turn off the blade and let it stop before you grab the piece. Yes, it takes a few extra seconds, but a few extra seconds is worth half a hand. I'm going to tell you right now, I saw this one professional. He was teaching us how to do stop cuts in the middle of a board while you're cutting it through the board, and stop it, say, right here. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is that dangerous? And the curator of the school came running out and she said, "Sue, what did you see?" I said, "Something you'll never see again, because we don't need this guy teaching us, because that could have been easily come back at us." Never lift a piece of board while the blade is running. If you can, and I try to make them for all my saws, use zero clearance inserts. These reduce the chance of slender cuts dropping into the lower part of the blade and making the round trip to speed by your head. They also reduce splintering cuts. I use it for splintering. And I use it on all my saws. Keep the tabletop smooth and polished. A dirty or rough table requires you to use more force to push the stock through the blade. It may also rust like crazy, further reducing the saw's effectiveness. And if the saw is not running free, don't turn it back on. Make sure the saw is running free before you turn on the power. This is especially helpful after you make changes or adjustments. In other words, spin the blade without power a time or two to make sure there are no scraps or tools touching it. And there's a lot more here, but I think we need to have it in 2 different sessions. Folks, saw safety, any saws, especially if it's rotating towards you, can do something to you in a nanosecond. And in my opinion, the table saw is one of the most dangerous tools in the shop. Yes, I've gotten cut by a bandsaw, but I think it's more dangerous than the bandsaw. So remember, be safe this week. Be safe around your power tools. And I'd love to see you next week. And on that note, I want to say to everybody, to folks that say, "Sue, can I say something?" I want you to say something. I want you to say, "Sue, well, this is what's happened to me," or "Sue, let's make this even better and say this." I want to hear that because that way we're helping each other. Be safe this week, guys. See you next week.
Thank you, Sue.
Right on, Sue. Thank you.
Hey, Sue, I'd like to add one thing.
I'd love to hear it.
And, this is from experience. If you're gonna cut reused lumber or repurposed lumber, make sure you got the nails out of it. Make sure they're
Yeah,
not
right.
broke off below the surface.
Exactly.
I cut my thumb off in a table saw due to the fact that there was a nail that I did not see in a board that had been repurposed. Somebody
Yanked
broke
the
it off
board in.
below the surface.
Yanked the board in and thumb right
Yep.
along with it.
Took
Yep.
my thumb
Sure.
completely off. So,
Wow.
so check your lumber. Even if you think it's not been used, check it anyways. Just be
Thanks.
safe.
Thank
Good
you.
ideas. And might I add, you should not be cutting your round blanks on a table saw.
No,
Hmm.
I can't imagine anybody doing that, but no.
I've seen people do it.
I have seen people do it.
Now
There's
that's,
YouTube videos with people doing it. Oh my God.
yeah, that's,
Ridiculous. They
the one
cut it one way and they flip it back over, to try and cut the corners off and try to get it as close to round, and the whole 45 minutes that they spent at the table saw trying to make this thing round, they would have had it round already if they would have chucked it up and spun that wood off.
exactly. And that also goes with what I was going to bring up next week, but no freestyle cutting on a table saw.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people do it.
Do you mean like holding it by the hand and going, you can't do that even for firewood? just real quick.
Yeah.
Y'all scaring. Look, man, y'all scaring Doug. Y'all keep coming up with stuff. And
You do
Where's
that
the
to cut
camera at? We
logs.
getting this on video? Man, I can get a lot of hits on this.
Yeah.
They used to teach that stuff, and it's crazy. I watched a 12-foot piece of mahogany, 12 feet long, 2 by 8, I believe it was, shot 40 feet across a high school shop wall and impaled into a block wall.
Wow.
And that, it's crazy. It's amazing. It's a miracle nobody was in that line of fire. But yeah, it was nuts.